Hi, friends, and welcome to Costuming in Color, a YouTube show dedicated to showcasing amazing costumers of color and those who support them.
I'm Gigi, a historical history buff, historical costumer, and dabblist. I am actually also on location on the Oregon coast, but it's raining. So instead of being on the beach with this, I am in my car. Just pretend I'm not in my car.
I mean, you get the rain, that's nice. And I'm Noelle, a costumer who likes to play both sides of the historical and cosplay world.
Today we are interviewing Bianca. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on location.
Thank you for being on the show. We're so excited to have you. But first, we're going to discuss some house rules. The first rule of Costuming in Color is that you tell everyone about Costuming in Color.
Yes, this way, even if you don't have people of color in your local groups, you can get to know some in our global community.
The second rule is that kindness matters. Aside from that, there are no rules. All right, let's get into it. Bianca, where are you from and do you still live there?
I am from the Central Valley of California and I do not live there. I have moved around quite a bit, but I am currently in, I would say sunny San Francisco, but like it's volatile weather here. So like, you know, I had my heat on today. It's not sunny.
I'm like 49 miles from you and it is sunny AF here. It's like 85 degrees.
Microclimates.
Yeah, for sure.
So what is your favorite thing about where you live?
Honestly, as much as I just like kind of gave shade to the weather, like I know a lot of people don't adore the constant fogginess and sometimes I walk 10 feet and it's a different complete like weather pattern here. But I grew up in a place that never really had as many seasons. And like that isn't to say San Francisco has many seasons, but it has more than where I grew up. And it was really hot where I grew up, and I don't love 115-degree summers, and summer is like 90% of the year. So I love the weather. It's been great for my allergies, to be honest. Like clear air has really helped with I had asthma when I was a kid, so it's like I feel really privileged, honestly, to like live in a place where it's clear air for once in my life. Weirdly, I also really like the public transit. Like I don't use it a lot, but like I grew up in a place that like there wasn't a lot of public transit, and like if there was, it was like this thing about like, oh, you don't want to take the like it was a classist thing. It was a whole thing. I didn't go very many places, and like I just really love that this, you know, the Bay Area has great transit. It has these like initiatives. Like, is it perfect? No, but like I can easily get like traverse places here, and it's really cool for me. Like I'm a nerd that I'm like I like exploring and I like being able to do that, and especially places with no parking. So yeah, and I live in like close to a little park, so it's nice to be like I can go from city to like nature and like have all these different flavors like all at once where I live.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, your transportation system is significantly better at the top than it is. I live at the bottom of the Bay Area. If I want to take public transportation to work, it would take me like 3.5 hours. I mapped it one time. I was like, maybe not.
That's a real, I mean, again, like it's hard because like I'm kind of making statements around like where I live.
Yeah.
Bay Area is admittedly very large and everyone has a different, like North Bay is not going to have the same experience as I'm having here. So all that to say, I'm talking more to my little like my little specific privileged space that I get to live in.
You live in the center of the universe. It's great.
It is. I live right over the beach too. So I'm just like living my childhood dream.
That's really awesome. What is your Instagram handle and why did you choose it?
I believe my Instagram handle is my name. I got it because I work professionally in social media, and like at the time I was like, whenever there's a new platform, I'm always like, I'm grabbing my name because it's common and I'm just grabbing it. On most other platforms, I go by Bookhoarding. And that one is because I had this long, lengthy conversation with somebody about what were things that were acceptable by society to hoard. And I was like, books. And that's the thing that I do have a tendency. Well, now fabric, but like books at that time were the things. I was like, books.
Have you considered grabbing fabric hoarding?
You know what? I don't want to encourage myself because that like I can't do both. I really need to stash busts so bad.
Do you want to talk about your YouTube channel a little bit?
Yeah, so I have been attempting to use my YouTube channel a lot more. It's actually kind of old. Like I think it's like 8 years old, maybe. I went to kind of ish film school where it was I went to USC and I went to a grad program that was adjacent to a film program. It was visual anthropology, where you basically made like a kind of documentary film with more theory, I think is like my TLDR of that program. But I did a lot of video and like editing things back then. So I started a YouTube channel and it has like these random bits. So if you ever subscribe and you see these random, like, I think I did like a filmmaker workout video that was like a joke about like lifting your tripod and like doing silly things. But in like the last year, I've really tried to make it more of an accessible, like, people like to ask me about like my Regency costumes. And I'm always like, I mean, my first costume, I got everything from Ross. So let me show you how I did that. Because I really love Jane Austen space, and I really want people to feel like they can be their own heroine in that kind of interesting world of like fantasy and like Pride and Prejudice of like Regency romance. So I like to be like, here, just add a ribbon, put a ribbon on it. Let's go.
So what's the costuming scene like where you live?
It is wide and diverse. And I know that y'all have talked about the Bay before. There's just a diversity of not only people, but like a range of skills and interests. And it's really cool because I grew up in a place that like you didn't really costume except for Halloween, unless you were me. And I was always trying to slide excuses into being that person who went over the top on a theme. And it's just really cool to be in a place where like that exists. Like it can be a little overwhelming, I think, if you're like me and you're like eager to do it all. But it gives you really cool options. And I think too, it like gives you options if you're like, oh, this thing is a little bit like not my speed or like not my style, or there's maybe some people here that I don't vibe with, you can kind of find a different thing. So it's really cool. I like that it's just like a buffet of options.
Yeah, we live in costuming Mecca. Like that you can't beat the Bay Area for that.
Really lucky to be in the area.
Yeah. Cosplay, historical, or both?
Both.
For historical, what time period or place is your favorite?
Regency, because like I Jane Austen was a thing that I grew up on that I love for like very weird reasons that I will unpack at some point in my life. But Jane Austen Regency is like my go-to. I also really love that it's fairly simple to put together a Regency outfit, and they can be kind of forgiving in terms of you can make them, you know, just go over a push-up bra and you're good. Like if you really want to make it that simple, I kind of love it for that.
It is a great period of time for that particular reason. It's very entry level friendly, I would call it.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it too. And like, I totally do get that some people aren't in love with that style. It's not as glitzy and as glamorous as other periods. I think especially the ones that a lot of people center on in terms of like the things they do more in, it's maybe not the Regency. But I do definitely feel like starter historical stuff, it's really forgiving. It's fine to get into. If you don't love the silhouette, totally get it. Like, I would definitely say just work with some overdresses, see if you like it a little bit better with some layering. If not, you've learned a bunch of skills in the process and you can just build from there.
I do have to give a shout out. Like I'm a person who doesn't love the Regency silhouette, although that Emma movie made me really, really want to do it again. But it is by far, hands down, the most comfortable period, like other than like a medieval kirtle. And even then, it's kind of more comfortable.
Yeah. I also, again, I got a lot of stuff from Ross. The fact that like the Empire waist is still a prom waistline you can find. The little like ballet flats, easy enough to find. You can find the like, I think they're Irish folk dancing ones that have the little crisscross ribbons already built into them. Like the Regency, as much as it's a little bit like stagnant, a lot of those things left over and like we see in modern fashion. So that's also the other reason I like it, because I like to recommend the like go to a Ross, pick up, or a Target or whatever. You can kind of upcycle your own outfit.
Absolutely. So since you do cosplay, what kind of characters do you gravitate towards?
Amazing badass women with weapons. I love swords and lightsabers. I've done a Sabriel and a Mara Jade and a Jedi Leia. Those are my faves because I also do combat-y things. And they're just fun. It's fun to have a sword.
Yep. Do you want to discuss your wedding?
My wedding that was a backyard wedding or living room wedding, and then we took some photos outside. yeah, I met my partner through lightsaber stuff, and love is real. Didn't know if I believed that at the time, to be honest. And we just have this really cool nerdy thing where we share love of, I share a lot of costume stuff. He really loves sword stuff. And we just kind of meld those things and we'll talk about those things. Like when I talk about Austen, he's like, oh, wait, this is Napoleonic. And like, I understand all the swords from this period. And we can kind of share that thing and have that intersectional like interest there. And of course, Star Wars. Like we do all the nerdy stuff. We did a Star Wars-ish themed wedding where I had my like Leia belt on over my dress, and he had his little like Star Wars cufflinks and things, and it was nice. It was really cool. He printed me Jedi Leia her lightsaber hilt. He 3D printed it so that we could put a bouquet in it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool.
That's so sweet. Actually,
love is real. I didn't believe it, but then it hit me like a train, and I was like, yeah, okay, fine, it's real.
Did you see that guy?
Yeah, it's cool. That guy's in our video now.
That guy right
I'm leaving
there.
this part in.
So tell us how you got your start in costuming.
I started sewing or trying to learn how to sew with my great grandma. I was lucky enough, she lived through her 90s. So when I was a toddler, she was alive and she was always trying to teach me stuff. And I was not very good at any of that because I was a toddler. But that kind of led to me being interested in fiber arts and like sewing arts kind of things. And Pirates of the Caribbean was one of those movies with like the purple dress that Elizabeth Swann wears. I was like, I love this dress. Admittedly, now I'm just like, what is going on with this dress? But at the time, I was just like, I love it because I love purple and I love this movie is just doing so much for me. It's got swords, it's got pirates, it's got some rum. And I would be just like remiss to not mention that Costumer's Guide to Movie Costumes was the website that I spent so much of my time on when I was a teenager. It's a repository for like most costume drama related movies of like a certain era, of just like screen caps of the costumes from the movie, from any behind the scenes stuff, from museums. Like people would submit photos when they'd have those costumes on tour at like museums or theaters or whatever, and people would be like, okay, so this is how this thing works, and like I got this kind of undershot as close as I could, so this is the fastening that's under this one thing. And she has it for Star Wars costumes too. But I loved that. Like it was super cool to see people just like not only documenting these really gorgeous costumes, but it's like parsing out how to make them or the construction, even if I didn't get it at the time. That was just like so cool for me. So I remember trying to make that purple dress, and I tried to like Frankenstein these modern princess themed patterns that I got to make it. And that was like in 2007. Yeah, it was kind of a mess. And I kept it somehow. I kept this one unfinished project and I finished it in 2020. And I only had the fabric I had. I couldn't match that fabric, that random fabric that I got when I was a teenager, and I was like, this is perfect, to teenage me. But like, I finished it and it felt so good to finish it and be like the polonaise is not very big because I didn't get a ton of fabric and I had to piece, but I'm like piecing this period. And it was just really cool and fulfilling to be like, man, I did finish this eventually. And like, sure, the thing I started out with is nowhere near the thing I finally finished. But like, it was so fulfilling to finish this, like, what is it? Like I don't know, this like the whale or whatever, like the like random thing that you've been chasing forever.
Yeah.
That was the thing that I've been chasing. And I was so excited to just like have it done and be like, this is my dress.
That's amazing. What keeps you in this community?
It's not just the fabric sales. That does keep me, excited and inspired. I'd say friends and like the really good folks I meet in this space, the creative and inspirational folks who just like, not only are they so smart and driven and like have like this amazing power in what they do and what they do with their spaces, but the folks that are actively fighting for actual change in the spaces that need the change, that gives me so much hope in those spaces that have had problems, because I'm just like, if there wasn't folks fighting, if it was just like one or two of us, it would be kind of like, why are we here? Well, you know, what are we doing here? But like knowing how many people in a large, like parts of the community, at least that I'm touching still, are actively trying to make change, that keeps me here. Like that's the thing that keeps me going.
So that being said, what would you like to see improve in the costuming community?
I'm like, let me go get a beer. Hang on.
We're gonna need more wine.
Yeah.
All the things. I still think that like anti-racism work is really, really crucial. I think that there's been a lot of crucial conversations, but we need to keep going and we need to not settle. I think that there's a lot of ally fatigue in a lot of places and a lot of communities I'm in, not just costuming. This is like a blanket term. But I really think that this space needs to continue to keep going. It needs to stop centering white feelings and fragility in every single conversation around race and racism and how we deal with it. It's a big one, and I don't think it's ever going to be a thing that we solve in every single corner. I understand that, but I definitely feel like we cannot give up. Allies, like I know some of you are tired. Please don't stop. And, you know, the folks who also I think have maybe dropped out of the community, you know, I really hope that they stay hopeful in some way, but I totally get why you would leave if you've experienced racism, if you've seen the conversations in some spaces not get any better. I totally get that. I totally respect that. It's hard, but I definitely am like, the only way for this community to keep going and not be 100% irrelevant is to actually actively keep on the anti-racism train.
Agreed. What is your favorite completed project?
I will say my last completed project, because it was another dream dress. It was Moulin Rouge Satine's red dress. It was a labor of love. That was one that luckily I did not start and not finish and have to hold on to forever. That was a one-time thing, thank goodness. That's been a dream dress. That's been a thing that I don't know if you do this, but like I will find the photos and make like Pinterest boards or whatever and be like, okay, so when I make this, I need to remember to do this thing. And I like discovered from this other screen cap that like this is actually how the bustle works. And I do a lot of that. So this is a thing that like has been brewing in my brain with reminders of don't forget to do this thing. And I finally did it and I love it. It's a labor of love. Is it accurate to the movie? Is it stitch by no, it's not, but it's mine and I can wear it and I feel good in it. Goodish. Awesome. Like, let's be real. Cause sometimes like I have a little bit of like pandemic weight gain. And it's definitely real. And I definitely have had moments about it, but like I made it to fit me as I am now. And
as you should.
As you should. Like, I think that like sometimes we are aspirational and
yes.
we forget.
You're not that girl.
Like I like to mention about the Moulin Rouge dress that like it was a little bit of a labor of like also coming to terms with how my body's changed. Because I think that like sometimes we see people in their pretty photos and we don't think there's issues, and I think we internalize that, and I want to be a little bit open about, you know, it's not just sunshine and unicorns and I came out and I felt perfectly like Nicole Kidman. It's like I'm like a short like curvy Latina girl. Like I'm not gonna look exactly how she looks, but I'm also, you know, gonna own that and be okay with that. And I made a dress that fits me and my body and like does the things I need it to do, and in that way I love it.
That's awesome. That's really great. And I'm glad that you made something that fits you for reals and makes you feel like that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's definitely one of those things that like, if I tried that when I was younger, I would have stopped and been frustrated and not gotten it. but building those skills and like really understanding those changes that I needed to make for myself, it made the process so different this time.
And it's a gorgeous dress. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Thanks.
So what's the silliest thing that's ever happened to you at an event?
There was an 1830s picnic, like before the pandemic, and it was at this little like old farmhouse historic space, and it was hot. It was real hot. And I had made a long sleeved 1830s dress, and the fabric I used was this kind of crepe-ish black thing. And I always make the joke of it's like wearing one of those trash bag like workout suits that day. Like it just felt like that's what I was wearing because of how sweaty I was. And my hair was crazy, right? Like it was just, my hair was doing all the things and I was just like sweating. And I had a terrible migraine that day too, on top of all the things. So I was really warm, and that's kind of like that's the worst thing. The headache is kind of, it's over here, but like if I'm too hot, I'm just miserable. So we had brought food for picnic, and we had thrown some freezer stuff in to keep everything cold, including some Otter Pops. So I decided to put an Otter Pop down where my busk was, and it felt really good. Like, I'm not gonna lie, Otter Pop busk is like,
pro tip.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
Would recommend.
If you can get those little gel things instead of what are those called? Chicken wings, you know, bust enhancers. You get the little gel freezer packs and stick those in as your chicken wings. It's the way to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is now a show about under boob sweat.
I mean, it's real, right? Like we're real people.
Yeah.
I was also thinking I would not want to make my boobs any bigger by putting anything in them to lift them up anymore. So the busk thing I will do, and maybe like try to do some side underarm type stuff. Yeah. Good tips.
Plus, then you have an Otter Pop. Then when it's like in that perfect little melty, but not too melty, you have an Otter Pop.
You said plus then you have an Otter Pop. Okay.
Make sure you're wearing a black dress though, because if you open an Otter Pop in like a white Regency dress, that is not the way to go, peeps.
I take no responsibility for misuse of an Otter Pop.
Yeah, disclaimer, asterisk. Do you have any sentimental or nostalgic costuming memories to share?
I mean, we a little bit went over it, but like meeting my partner is just like the most nostalgic thing. It was, you know, nighttime at a museum, and there was Star Wars, R2-D2 was hanging out, and like lightsabers were, you know, just flying, and music was playing, crescendoing. That's always gonna be my nerdy romantic thing. I'm just like, yeah, I forever didn't believe in like the books that I actually really love. I love romance books, and I forever was like, but I'm never gonna find that. And then it was like, boom, meet cute of your lifetime.
Dreamweaver's playing. It gets all dim and fuzzy on the outside.
How did you know?
Been there.
What costuming groups or organizations are you in?
I'm in a lot of groups and organizations. But I feel really, really responsible for folks who join things that I talk about. And I feel, especially in the last year or so, there are a lot of groups that I am a part of and that I love, but they need to do work. So I don't want to necessarily recommend them. So I guess my more blanket thing will be a lot of orgs are trying. That doesn't mean they're 100% like have always been there. That doesn't mean that all the time they're going to get it right. If you have questions about any of the orgs that you've seen me in and you want to have a real talk about it, I'm here. My DMs are open. I currently will say that I am in GBACG, and that is the only one I will name drop. Is it perfect? Has it been perfect historically? No, but they admit that. And I think that like if you're in any org that pretends that they've been perfect the whole time, be on guard, because I have been there and been betrayed. Sometimes that means they just don't want to talk about something bad that's happened, and that's not okay. But GBACG, I feel like since I've been a member, has been making great strides to do better, but they also very much acknowledge they have not always been great. That is like for where I am, that has been a good experience. I also acknowledge it's not always been a good experience for everybody. That, you know, we all come at different points in time, different orgs and different parts of those lifespans. Totally get it. But if anybody has questions about any of the other orgs I'm in, if you notice that I'm in them and you're like, hey, I might be interested because I saw you posting about it, ask, and I will give you the real from what I know. But yeah, I just am a person who feels personally responsible for anybody who joins something, because I'm like, go forth and join this thing. Because I think we've all learned, like, we can't guarantee other people's safety, let alone our own, all the time. And I would rather be honest with folks about those levels and those comfort levels that I've had with different orgs than be like blanketly, yes, just join all these things. They're great.
Everything that Bianca just said goes for me also. Like, I have that same policy. Like, if you have questions or whatever, please come ask me. I am happy to give you whatever lowdown I have on any group that you see me in or even near, because I do know a lot of the orgs and what happens in them. So I'm happy to give you any information that I have. And you can do with that what you like. But I also feel very personally responsible when I tell people to join things.
Yeah. And I think that, like, you know, everyone has their different comfort level on recommending and like being involved. I think too, for a lot of us, we've been trying to make change in certain spaces, and we are really aware of the pain points. And that's why we're not going to be like, yeah, join us right now, even if we're doing some work, because we know that it may not be safe for you yet. And that's I think a valid thing too. And if you're in an org and you feel that way and you don't feel comfortable recommending them, that's fine too. I think a lot of people feel pressure to be like, oh, I'm in these things and I have to like make sure that it looks good and I make them look good. And it's like, if they're not doing the work, you don't need to do this free publicity for them.
Nope, you don't. And we have talked on this channel about organizations and their issues. People have given their experiences. I've talked about the SCA, which is the only organization I'm in. And it, you know, there are some pros and cons. So the same goes for me. If you guys want to hear more about that, definitely contact me. And it's nice to meet other people who feel the same. I do feel responsible, right? I don't want to promote something where someone might get hurt, whether it's physically or emotionally. And I like the fact that I'm meeting people who also take that as a responsibility. And I appreciate you guys offering that.
What cons or events do you actually recommend?
Well, I adore Girlcon, which is in Seattle. If you've never gone, please check it out. It is awesome. It's kind of this weird cuspy like local con, but not really like local con. But it's worked really hard to create a safe space and environment in so many intentional ways. Again, it's not to say that I know all the ins and outs. There might have been something behind the scenes I don't know about. And I'm just going to say that about anything for the rest of my life, because I just want people to know that, like, not always do you know everything. It's not a bright, shiny, you know, finished platter. There could be stuff behind the scenes. Girlcon, though, for me, has been an amazing experience. I make that trip. There's great people, even better merch and art there. Super nerdy, all your niches. I find silly things. Like I found Sabriel stuff. I found another Sabriel cosplayer there. And I'm like, I've never seen one in my entire life. And the one time that I finally have this costume, I see another, and I was so excited. So it's like a lot of just like niche nerd love there. Steampunk, I go to Clockwork Alchemy, which is local to the Bay Area. They do really cool things from a lot of maker things, and a lot of them feature local makers and local people in the costume space. So it's almost like a little mini like costume outing, as far as just like a little mini costume college, costume academy thing. Because there's people who do EVA stuff and who do like really cool like magic with lights and all those things. So that's really cool. And they also have a war room, which is a weapons space, and they do free classes. Like, it's included with your admission. Like, it's free classes on combat, on various styles of combat, including tea dueling, which is literally teaching you how to duel with like tea things, a parasol, and like hat pins. And it's awesome.
Okay.
So that is, I recommend that. And then I mentioned Costume Academy, which is put on by GBACG. I think it's really good. I think that like they really intentionally pick their teachers and the topics, and they try to make that really accessible for folks locally. I know it's mainly local, but I know GBACG has also been doing a lot of virtual workshops and everything. So if the pandemic is still going and you're interested and you see virtual stuff, check it out, because I feel like they really do try to curate the more expensive, more intense things and the kind of more affordable things if you're a newer costumer. And I think that's really important in these spaces. So that's another one. And I will plug that Costume Symposium is coming up in August, and it's put on by a bunch of costumers, and it's really cool because I didn't really get into like the kind of costumey scene until after COVID, I guess, because I was working in news and I was very busy and had no time. And then after that, I got really involved, and I found a lot of really cool folks that are specifically people of color in this space, which was really, really cool for me, because there are people locally, but connecting kind of nationally with folks has been really cool, because we all have different experiences. And a lot of those folks are going to be part of this cozy, as they're calling it, in August. So highly recommend, because like it's actually bringing me out of my shell to like do more and like try to do better and like get out there more and do collabs and things like that. So if you're like new to kind of the costume space, I'd say definitely check that out, because there's a lot of people who are putting a lot of heart into their programming for that. And it's also like, for me, COVID was really interesting because it was like a one-stop shop of like, oh, these are all the cool people and like all the cool skills and all the things. And I think that's just like those things, much like Costume Academy, are like really cool kind of like samplers if you're trying to get into a thing and you're trying to find your people in a thing.
Yeah. So COVID was my event last year. Like I was the one that was hosting it. And so I, just so everyone here knows, everyone keeps asking me if I'm doing it again. I'm not doing it again because that was exhausting. So there's a bunch of people who are hosting this event, same type of event, almost exactly. So if you enjoyed COVID, this is the thing that you're going to want to do this year.
Yeah, it's definitely, again, for new folks, for folks who just want to dip a toe or get an idea for certain periods or anything.
Yeah,
that was what was really helpful, and it feels like people are trying to do very similar for this event.
It's a very like broad range of things that you can watch, and it's all on YouTube, so it's all free. You can just sit on your couch, and the best thing about it is if you're not available that weekend, it's still all on YouTube. So
that is the best thing. It's free and it's on demand, essentially, if you're too busy.
If anyone wants to see what that was like, on my channel, I do have a COVID playlist of every single person that hosted a panel at COVID. You can go back and watch their panels still. Even people who said that they were going to take their panels down are still listed there.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. So what is your entertainment routine while you're crafting or sewing or whatever? Do you watch movies? Do you listen to music?
I listen to audiobooks, specifically romance ones that are very steamy and silly, because it's just fun to be like really intently working on something and be like, oh, they're getting saucy. Oh, I'm gonna relax and listen to this for a second.
I know that you have a very like I don't even know how to put this. You think about romance novels in a way that had never occurred to me before, in that I think I heard you say something like, these are actually the most popular books that exist. Stop bagging on them. So like that changed how I felt about romance novels. Like I don't personally read a lot of them, but when you said that, I was like, yeah, you're right. It's kind of like country music, where it's like not something I enjoy, but it is actually the most popular music ever. And so shut up.
Romance as a genre, I could go on for days. We're not here for that. But like, that's definitely one of those things that's like it's a misconception about like a lot of things. Because I'm like, actually, a lot of people buy it. They might not talk about it, but it's rain or shine, good or bad economy, the top selling genre. And I also think too, I will say this plug for the genre, which is it's had some issues. Like with anything, as we've talked about here, things have had some issues, but there is a lot of big movement in the last few years to make it more diverse and more representative, and have intentionality not only with the author, what's in the book, but also the editors and the process to the marketing. And I think that like it by no means that means everything's perfect, but like there's been some really great moves toward representation. And I'm like, yeah, okay, like now people can, instead of imagining themselves in a Bridgerton novel, they can see themselves in a Regency romance written by a person of color.
Tell us who inspires you.
So these are the costumers. I made a list because these are the people who I'm just like always like, these are the folks that I see their stuff and I'm just like, I want to see all of this. And also it's amazing. Muse and Dionysus, please follow on all the things. They've been doing a Renaissance Mean Girls thing, and I didn't even think that I wanted to do Renaissance stuff. And then I saw the Renaissance Mean Girls stuff, and I'm like, man, those are so awesome. So check out Muse and Dionysus and all the things. Adria Renee, she is the Her Universe winner, I think, for 2019.
Mhm.
She does a lot of, it's so Her Universe does like nerdy fashion that you can wear, but the fashion show itself was like couture. And so she did this awesome Jurassic Park dress. She's done other amazing nerdy dresses. I love watching her work. It's, if you like to do the kind of history bounding thing, like this is kind of that level of like bringing the nerdy to the everyday. That's awesome. Katian Designs makes amazing cosplays. She has an Aowen and a Party Elf Thronduil, and Party Elf Thronduil is the thing that I found her through, and it makes me so very happy because it's like this, it's this random meme from years ago, and when I saw someone doing it, it was just like, yes, we were in the same forum, like however many years ago, me and you. Really good. Fresh Frippery, who it's Vivian. She is amazing. I love her. She does a ton of stuff to make things accessible around sewing, from video stuff to tutorials like that are on TikTok and stuff. And yeah, she's great. She's an all around just amazing human too. So I would be remiss to not just say, check out all of her stuff. Historical Garments, Maria is a gem and has been incredibly generous with her time, at least like for me. And like, she gives these incredible historical photos on her feed, on her Instagram feed. Oh, amazing, incredible human. And then Wax Seal Costumes, that's Adrian. We are both sword enthusiasts and costume enthusiasts, and also work in social media. And I have bonded with all of our shared loves, but like specifically swords and costumes, I'm there. I want to fight in a costume. I want to be able to fight in my corset, all the things, and we'll do it.
That's an awesome list. I agree.
They're also my, like, again, like these are my aspirational and inspirational people who I'm just like, I see the work that you do and it inspires me to not only do better as far as like the work I do, the details, because I'm like, oh yeah, you can do detail shots of things. I shouldn't just pretend that I'm not going to look at the details later, but also just like the skill levels, like they're always working towards stuff and sharing that. And that makes a difference for me as somebody who I'm like, it's easy to judge yourself essentially, and seeing folks be really transparent about their processes, their wins, their fails makes things great.
Yeah, totally. Who or what are you grateful for?
The simple things. Like I'm such like a corny person, but I'm like, I'm really grateful for like the home, as I kind of started out talking about, like where I live. Really grateful. I'm grateful for things that I didn't think that I'd have when I was younger. And I had to work really hard by myself to get to these spaces. And I'm just really grateful for that though. Like I'm grateful for the opportunities that I've been able to find. I'm grateful for the people in my life who like I love. And in terms of being grateful for like things, I'm going back to school in the fall. I'm going to City College because it's free for San Francisco residents. And I'm going to take fashion classes. And I'm really excited for that because like I grew up in like a very much go to school, do the thing that will get you a job. Don't do those handicraft things. And I feel like a lot of us have probably dealt with a little bit of that in our hobby spaces where family and other people are like, oh, why are you just spending time on that? You should be going toward money and not just spending money. And yeah, I'm like really excited because, you know, say living in the city, it's very expensive, but like one benefit of living here is also the ability to attend a community college for free and attend fashion, construction, pattern building classes for free. And I'm so grateful. I'm like immensely grateful because costuming and this stuff has really saved my like mental capacity in the last year or so, especially. And I feel like it's probably been the same for folks. So I'm really grateful that I can just have that space and ability to do these things, because it's accessible to me right now. It hasn't always been, but it's been like a big thing to be excited about for me.
That's really great. That program I hear is very good too. Like, I think you're going to have a good time.
Yeah, like I've been asking around, everyone seems to have a really good experience there, which is rare for any program.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited.
I'm excited for you. I can't wait to hear like how it goes for you and see the things that you work on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, flat patterning. Yeah, I want to learn that. Let's do this.
Yeah, for sure.
If you could give new customers one piece of advice, what would it be?
The one piece of advice would be, don't measure yourself with other people's dress forms. Like, do you. Don't, like, I think it's very easy, I think, as I've said a couple times, to like look at other people and be like, look, these are perfect, or look at movies and be like, this is perfect. I could never get there. And it was like, I mean, it would take many years of work to get there, but you can get there. And I think it's just, I follow people who do good work because it inspires me. And does that mean that I'm on their level? Maybe not necessarily on every, part of this costuming world, because there are many aspects to these skills, right? I think just keeping that in mind, because I think you can really get into your own head about your own skills a lot and your own, work that you do. But I think just viewing it as like, this is your space, this is your dress form, this is your measurements, this is you. This is what you like about and what you're learning, and this is your journey. It's not someone else's journey. They also had to do the things that you're doing. They had to teach themselves how to do a French seam or whatever, or they had to seam rip a million times too. Keep that in mind, because I think that it's so easy to just be like, it's just a feed of pretty photos and it's all perfect. And it's not always perfect. And that's fine. Like there are going to be flaws in the path to getting toward that dream dress that you want. And just keep that in mind and keep going.
You cannot skip the montage. Like, you have to go through it. Like that, I am guilty of montage thinking. Like I want to just montage my way through everything, and that is not how that works, especially this hobby.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard one. I think that's, again, why I recommended folks too that share those things, like the behind the scenes, like this is them actually building this thing, because I think it's, again, so easy just to be like, they just got there one day.
Yeah.
So if you have a closing message on equity and inclusion, we'd like to make space for that now.
I have so many things, but I guess the one thing that I will focus on is, if you're feeling allyship fatigue, keep listening, keep going, but also understand the difference between support and centering your own comfort. Because I've seen a lot, and it's not just the costuming space, but it's also in adjacent historical literary spaces, a lot of centering of white comfort in these conversations, and in conversations being led by people of color around things that are happening to them, have happened to them. I've specifically, in multiple places, seen white people using terminology to try to bring it back to them. I've seen people using safe space to try to silence conversations about racism. I've seen white people doing that. If you're a cis white person, do not use safe space or no politics here to silence things. It is not your place to do that. You need to really be listening right now. Don't weaponize words like that to stop critical conversations. And yeah, that's my big thing right now is allies. You might be tired, but you can take a step back if you need to educate yourself and rethink things, instead of going out there and digging yourself into a hole that's only going to make you realize later on you should have been listening. You were not listening. And I think a lot of people, if you start feeling defensive, that's, to me, the go take a time out, go chill, turn off the phone, just turn it off, throw it in the corner of the room, because that is the time where I've seen the most things go really, really badly, and people not listening and learning. They stop listening. Just, take your time. No one expects you to be perfect. No one expects any org to be perfect. No one expects our costumes to be perfect. But I think really critically right now, do not keep on trying to maintain power and get defensive about it. Be open to failing, as we are. Again, like if we're okay failing in our costuming, you can be okay failing in a conversation, being like, you know what, I said this thing earlier, it was inappropriate. I'm gonna bow out. I'm gonna do what I need to. I'm so sorry. It's that easy. I just think that there's still a lot of work to do, and no one's gonna cancel you. That's not even a thing. No one's actually been canceled. I think Netflix subscriptions have been canceled because people can cancel those after that trial run. But I think like streaming is the only thing that I've really seen, you know, people canceling anything for. Just,
even
you know,
Kevin Spacey has work.
Legit, like, weren't they making that whole like everybody that was canceled show too, where it was just like all the people? I'm like, no, you haven't been canceled. If you get a deal for a show, you have not.
Yes.
So all that to say, this isn't like some witch hunt, and I think a lot of people feel that way. I feel like they feel like they're on like a high wire of like, if I misstep, I'm done. That's not how allyship works. It's not about you, sorry allies, but it's really about the work. So just show up to do the work, and don't get fatigued by it. But if you feel that fatigue, my thing is step away, because it's either going to make you so tired you don't want to do it, or it's going to make you so tired you're going to do the thing that you wish you hadn't done.
Well said.
It's a lot of words, so I don't know if it's a message as messages.
But all good messages.
All
and
good
I think I kind of dissociated for a second when you were talking, because I wish someone had said those things to me when I started in the costuming hobby space. I wish I had heard someone saying that to other people, allies in the costuming space when I started. Those were very powerful messages that you sent out, and I'm glad that you did.
Yeah. And like we're never all going to agree on the same stuff. Like, there are going to be people in your life that you're like, we're on the same page around this thing. Maybe we've had some mishaps in the past, whatever. I think that as humans, we keep growing and doing better. And I think that like keeping that in mind, instead of having, I see this again in a lot of spaces where it's like pettiness over stuff. I'm like, we're adults. Like, let's grow together and let's make this better together. Because that's the way forward in my mind. Like, I don't have time to dig up someone's petty argument about a button or a shoe, whatever. Like, we don't have time for this.
Solid agree. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Bianca. It was lovely to get to know you today a little bit better. Also, thank you to our viewers for watching this episode. We will leave a list of Bianca's information down below for you all to go follow her on her platforms.
Please do give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't, and if you have a costumer of color that you think we should interview, use the form that we put in the description box below to tell us about them. Make sure also to leave a little love for Bianca in the comments. Stay safe out there and take care of each other.